Is e-gravel a thing? Should it be a thing? Trek's new Checkpoint Plus represents Trek's vote on what electric gravel should be with a 350 watt assist motor, a 50-mile range, and up to 50 millimeters of tire clearance. Here to discuss this subject, I've brought in the tech maestro himself, James Huang, founder of N-1 Bikes, who rode this bike with me down in Colorado Springs recently. James, how are you, sir? Good to see you.
Pretty good aside from one thing.
What's that?
Actually, two things.
Two things. Let's hear.
One, you still haven't provided snacks.
I offered snacks for
let
the record show.
Two, when are you going to start paying me for this?
I could pay you in snacks. So we'll talk about the general landscape. We'll talk about the landscape of electric road, electric mountain, electric city bikes. I know you're a big fan of these, as am I. And we'll talk about our experiences with this Checkpoint Plus in particular, whether this is a good cultural fit for the wild, woolly world of gravel. Let's talk about big picture. Back up, and then we'll dive in. Big picture of e-bikes. Are they a thing? Are they a good thing?
I think it's pretty clear that they're a thing.
Yep.
Like you mentioned, I think e-assist makes a ton of sense for a variety of categories. I mean, like you mentioned for like the urban mobility thing, like I think e-assist is huge. Like even just on the way down here, you see people on e-bikes and e-scooters and whatever all over the place. If that replaces people getting in cars, it's pretty hard to complain about that one. I'm definitely a big fan of e-cargo because it just basically makes it so that I don't have to drive around in town ever. E-mountain bike, we know, is a huge thing and has almost completely displaced regular mountain bikes, certainly in Europe. For a lot of people, the whole point of riding a mountain bike is so you can enjoy the way down, right? And if you have a motor on the way up, it just makes it so that you can go down a lot more. So in there, it's pretty obvious why that's been pretty big. E-drop bar in general, road and gravel, it's been a little bit more of an enigma for me, mainly because I don't know, like you don't necessarily ride those types of bikes for that purpose. Like I definitely enjoy going downhill on my road and gravel bike, but I don't go up climbs specifically thinking in my head like, I can't wait to get to the center. Like I'm like going downhill is not like the express goal of that ride. So like for me personally, does it make sense? I don't know, but I can definitely see how it can make sense for a lot of other people.
Sure, and that's kind of where I net out also that city bikes, yeah, absolutely. That initial just boost off the line, whether you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, especially if you're loaded down with cargo, having that instant torque feels great. And why wouldn't you?
And let's face it, people are lazy.
Yeah, and that's like a nice halfway between getting in the car and riding your bike. And range isn't really an issue there because if you're using it around town, you're probably not going to exceed the battery. So you don't have the range anxiety that people talk about with electric cars, for instance, where you have to be strategic about where you're going to ride and how. But that kind of ties in with...
I have a little bit of range anxiety when I do my Costco runs. I want to make that clear.
Yeah, because that's about...
It's pretty far.
15, 20 miles. There's a
10 miles each way, pretty big hill.
Climb in the middle. Yeah. Yeah, e-mountain bikes make sense. And where, like anything, it's like where you ride and how you like to ride and how you're using it makes such a huge difference. Being at Eurobike this year, I did a thing on what I was calling the Electric Bike World Championships because seemingly half the show was e-bikes. Most of them didn't look like bicycles at all. There's trucks and car-looking things and huge motors, and that makes sense there.
E-mobility.
E-mobility. The government telling you what you can and can't do, that also contributes to a lot of things.
Yeah,
I rode a Ducati e-bike.
Oh,
yeah.
Was it red?
I don't know. It was, of course, it was red.
Okay.
Now, as I've demonstrated to you many times, I don't know anything about motor vehicles, whether it's cars or motorcycles or anything. But Ducati, even an ignorant person like myself, had the brand awareness. Like, this is the monster. It's like a big thing. It's rah! Got on an Ducati road bike in Europe, and that monster maxed out at 25K an hour.
Yeah, let's talk about that. But you got to that 25K an hour really quickly.
Got her super quickly, and then it petered out, and then on the climbs it felt nice. Yeah, because you're just like cruising up at 16 miles an hour or whatever with very little effort. That feels nice. But on the flats, it motivated me to ride slower because if I exceed that level, all of a sudden I'm riding a very heavy bike.
Yeah,
with no assist.
For sure, the e-drop bar thing, I think, is very clearly a regional thing. Like the appeal is clearly tied to what you're allowed to do, like you mentioned. So in the U.S., we've got three classes of e-bikes, but the class 3 in the U.S. they can assist up to 28 miles per hour, I think, which is what, 40K an hour and change.
Yeah, a little over. Yeah.
In Europe and Australia, though, yeah, you're topped out at 25K an hour, which is roughly about what 15 miles per hour, 16 maybe, before that motor cuts out. And on a drop bar bike, that's kind of right when you're starting to have fun, or like if you're pegging it as, or if you're pitching this bike as a way for you to like keep up with the group ride, if you're starting to slow down a little bit, like that's not enough. Like being able to get assisted up to 25 miles an hour, 25K an hour,
Yes.
is basically just enough for you to like roll out of town,
Yeah.
and then get spit off the back.
Right. When the group starts going hard, you're now on a very heavy bicycle.
Yeah.
That is not going as quickly.
Yeah, and then like constantly teetering above and below that speed limit, and just like kind of like feeling that constant like surge of assist and no assist. And
So here in the U.S., like with this Checkpoint Plus, for instance, 28 miles an hour limit. That
Pretty fun.
Feels pretty good.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good.
so yeah, that ride that we did in Colorado Springs, I can't remember what exactly the stats were, but it was something like 28,000 or 2,800 feet of climbing, 28,000 feet of climbing.
28,000 feet of climbing.
2,800.
We did this all before we even turned on the battery, just to make a point.
2,800 feet of climbing.
Yeah.
In what, like
About 20
25
miles.
miles, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And we both ended up with 30+% of battery left, and like we weren't going super conservative either, and like it's pretty fun.
Yeah, super fun. And like on the benefits, I feel are a few fold. Going further faster is one of the main ideas, right? And going up steep stuff in particular, that's when I particularly appreciate it. Whether it's just a pretty flat dirt road, you just get up it faster, or some like, not for you technical, but for me, like borderline technical little trail climbs where sometimes I might be worried that I'm going to run out of steam partway up and I have to put a foot down and then I'm going to trip over. And if you've got an extra 350 watts pushing you along, that takes that anxiety out almost entirely of just cruising on up.
Yeah, just goose it. Just go.
But range anxiety is still a thing.
For sure. Definitely.
So and just so now to just pivot to like, does this make sense for gravel? What are some of the limiters? One of the attractions for some people for summer gravel is going far. It's an adventure ride, and see you're out there all day, and see how far you can push yourself, and that is kind of at odds with a battery that by definition has a finite life in terms of like its charge range, and then within that there's two things at odds of like. Sure, you can have a huge range, but it's going to weigh 800 pounds.
Right.
Or you can have a super light thing where it doesn't feel like an e-bike at all, but it's really not giving you a boost. So.
Right.
So with that in mind, let's talk about this guy where Trek voted, because I'm sure their engineers had these same types of conversations, like how much power is too much and too little, and like what are our dealers telling us, what are like other riders saying, and this TQ motor. 350 watt max in 3 different settings, and you can adjust what those settings are. And that range they claim is up to 50 miles. So of course, it always depends on like what kind of 50 miles, and that's
downhill with the tailwind.
Yeah, that's a frustrating thing. A lot of consumers have, myself included, is you want a set number, and with e-bikes you can't get a set number. But to your point of like, is it downhill tailwind? Is it uphill? Is it me sitting on it? But yeah, roughly 50 miles, and I think our experience.
Yeah, and like I definitely don't buy the argument that e-gravel or e-road is a way to cover a lot of distance, because like you said, the reality is like you're just going to run out of battery.
Yeah.
And particularly in those sorts of situations, like I know people who ride e-bikes who, like sometimes they'll even stash a battery or they'll carry a second battery, but in a lot of those cases, those bikes are super high powered. Like we're talking like now like 1,000 watts of assistance. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And when you have that much power, it's not that big of a deal to like haul another battery or stash one somewhere or whatever. Anyway, you're not going to do that on an e-road or e-gravel bike. Like I just don't see that. And like there are special instances for sure, but by and large, I think most people aren't going to do that. And if you have a range of about 50 miles or so in semi-ideal conditions, like it's just not that far. And for like a reasonably fit rider, like a 50-mile gravel bike ride, like it's a pretty decent day, but it's not like super epic, right? Like, so like for an e-gravel there or e-road, like who's the user case there? Like, it seems like the person who is kind of just wants to go out for like a kind of like a fun 2-3 hour cruise and just not really either not work super hard or be able to go a little bit faster and go a little bit further than they might otherwise be able to on a non-powered bike. So I can see that making sense there. And I've had several e-gravel bikes come through my garage over the years, and you know, and I'll admit, like, because I'm not necessarily the target customer, like I haven't really ridden them probably as much as I would like to, or maybe as much as I should. But I can definitely see how they have an application. Like I had a Canyon Grail on a few years ago, and it was a much bigger system. It was a Bosch something or other. I can't remember how big the battery was, and you know, you've done that Gold Hill ride, God knows how many times, and that's
Best ride in Boulder.
That's what, a 3,500, 4,000 foot day total if you're riding from town. Finished that ride, and I had almost 50% battery left, and I was like, whoa. Like if I was a little more careful, I could do that twice. And like that was one time I thought to myself, it's like this bike is heavy, it doesn't ride very well, it's a little cumbersome, but at that point, like with a higher powered system with more battery, I could see how that would have a little bit more appeal for somebody. Something like this, where again it's smaller, lighter, it's a little more normal looking, definitely quieter. Yeah, to me, I feel like it's sort of like ideally suited to like the 2-3 hour person.
One reason put out there often by e-bike proponents is it can make up the difference in two different riders, where like you're riding with your buddy, you're riding with your better half, whatever that case may be. And I've certainly seen cases of that here, like Sophie Lynn, who's certainly no slouch, Australian Olympian, owner of Sir Willie the Wiener. Alexi Vermeulen's better half, and like she'll often go out on her e-bike when Alexi's doing his intervals. Not that she couldn't keep up, but just, like that way she can just go and have a nice ride while he's doing work. So you'll see that sometimes as a use case for e-bikes.
It's also kind of a shocker that that's not Alexi's dog. I had no idea.
It's like an in-law dog, you know.
I know, but
so yeah, maybe that's another use case for e-bikes, is you can bring the pooch without so much of a penalty. How about the gear range? Does having up to 350 watts here change your thoughts on what should be going on in terms of cassette and ring? We're seeing a 44 on this compared to most bikes with one bike coming with a 40, unless they're like a ratio one, like this Vintage GS1 is a 42, which I feel is good. Chainring, cassette size thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it turns out 350 watts is pretty helpful. It really expands the range of what you might normally want or are able to do, I think, in a lot of cases. So for this bike, yeah, like you said, Trek put on a 44 up front, 1052, so it's a mullet gearing. And with that 44, I think in a lot of cases it might be a little bit too tall for a lot of people, but especially with that huge of a cassette and when you have that much assist, 44 is pretty good. And then it does let you still hit a pretty steep climb. And I would say certainly maybe steeper than maybe even not necessarily steeper than what you would normally do on a regular gravel bike, because a lot of that stuff can be traction limited.
Yeah.
But I think it certainly let you go up a lot of those climbs longer or easier, obviously. And then you just don't need as low of a gear.
Yeah.
So I think the bigger chainring makes sense.
Or in my case, it was just more confidence of like that extra 350 to get me through the chundery rocks and such.
Totally. And I think the mullet gearing makes sense because in a lot of cases on a gravel bike, I don't necessarily love, like my personal gravel bike, I still run 2x because I still like having the smaller jumps in the back. But with e-assist, because you have a wider range of cadences that can be comfortable when you're riding, you don't necessarily have to have the narrower jumps in the gears. So you can go ahead and have like the super wide range for more capability. And then it's just not really that big of a deal if you're not at your optimum cadence because you've got plenty of assist.
How about brakes? You feel there's 160 rotors, just eyeball?
This one's got 160s front and rear.
Yeah, is that enough?
I've always had an issue with rotor sizes on drop bar bikes in general, because the convention for any drop bar bike is 160 up front at most, and like maybe even 140 in the back for some people. I always run 160. But on my mountain bike, like I run a 203 up front, and sometimes like there are times when I run a 230.
Wow.
Like I want a lot of brake, but I also have a lot of traction.
Yeah.
But the thing for me on the road is like you maybe are not hitting like those like super crazy peak braking forces like you might see on a mountain bike. But you're going really fast and you're scrubbing a lot of energy.
With some extra weight.
With some, and in this case, extra weight. So
Yeah.
I almost kind of wish it would have a 180 rotor up front, if only just to give you, a little more heat capacity. Like my suspicion is if someone finds appeal in an e-assist gravel bike, it might be the sort of thing where, I don't know, like maybe the numbers in their power to weight ratio are not necessarily in their favor. So they might have a little bit more energy to scrub coming downhill too. In that case, a 180 rotor might make a lot of sense. And normally you'd run a 160 to save a little bit of weight. But if you have e-assist and weight's not really that big of a deal, stick a 180 on there. What's the downside?
What do you think about the little computer control interface on the top tube?
It's pretty slick.
I enjoyed seeing the dual power meter thing of what the engine is contributing and what I'm contributing. And it was usually more engine than rider contribution. But it's neat to see those two values. If you're a power nerd, that makes sense. If not, it may be a way to learn about it. But I appreciated that part of it.
Yeah.
I'd love to see, and again, you can't have this, but I want it, a very specific fuel gauge, as it were. And again, it would give you an approximation of like how many miles left you have at the full setting or at the middle setting or the single setting, but that's just an approximation because it doesn't know.
I mean, I like the trend in general of the more recent e-bike systems having integrated top tube displays. I think it's a good trend because it does clean up the cockpit. A lot of that information I don't necessarily need or want like right in my face anyway, but it's nice to kind of just have it there. Like that's actually where I put my computer on my trail bike anyway. But some of this, like Bosch, for example, their latest display and their latest systems, like they can get pretty intelligent. Like you can enter in your route and then they can kind of calculate based on the elevation change and stuff like that. Like it gives you a little bit more of an accurate estimate for how much battery you're going to use and how much you're going to have left. So some of those are more advanced than others, but for this, to keep it kind of small and light, I think it's a pretty good way to do it.
I like having my normal computer out front, so I'm seeing the things that I'm accustomed to seeing, whether it's just mostly the map, trying to figure out where to go.
Yeah.
I think that helps contribute to the normal looking factor if you're riding in a group and people look down and like you don't have a weird cyborg looking computer on your handlebars.
Like I almost kind of wish sometimes that you could have like almost like a sliding cover or something to like make it real stealthy. Like, nope, not on an e-bike.
How about the integration of power? We have no shortage of batteries and battery-driven things on bikes these days. We've seen the likes of Cannondale Synapse integrate stuff more closely. What do you think of this particular configuration?
I like the idea of not having to run a whole bunch of little batteries everywhere. So seeing as how we have a pretty big 360 watt-hour battery in the down tube, like you might as well use that to power everything, right? So the latest SRAM systems, it is nice that they have direct integration with that battery. The derailleur is just powered directly by that battery. So yeah, you don't have like the separate little axis thing that you have to worry about. You just plug it in. So if you have e-bike power, you've got shifting.
But you can still run the battery, so in case the e-bike battery goes out, you can still shift your bike.
You can. I don't think many people will, though.
I was impressed by a few things with this particular model. I declined to bring one home for long-term review in part just because, as I've demonstrated here, I've got more bikes than I can keep up with of the so-called acoustic variety.
I want to make it clear that you have more storage space than I do. Let's make that very clear right now.
Yeah, but you're more productive than I am, so like it all kind of evens out. So my experience with e-bikes has been a little bit more limited. Like I had a Ventum e-gravel bike in here for a bit, but I don't know the ins and outs of the motors as intimately as you do. But I do have a good feel for how bikes feel and how they sound, and the feel and low sound of this TQ system was impressive.
Oh yeah, the new motor is way better than the old one.
One beef that I have with some e-bikes is it seems like they can sometimes take on a life of their own. So for instance, my wife just rode with one of her buddies over to the CU dorm, see one of our kiddos' friends our friend's kiddos rather, in the dorm room. She borrowed another kiddo's bike, and it's basically a motorcycle, like a little e-motorcycle that it's pedal assist technically, and that you have to pedal it once, but then it just takes off, and then. In her experience, she was just on a rocket that she was no longer pedaling, and it was still accelerating.
She was a passenger.
And she's like weaving in and out of
very safe
of like all the CU kids coming at her on electric scooters and electric bikes and one wheels, and everybody's in their phone like this, and she's like, the boost, nice thing. The feeling that you're riding something that has a mind of its own, not so nice. Contrast that to this, and there's still like a fraction of an overhang, and that you need to. Pedal a revolution or two for it to kick in.
Yeah.
And then you can set how much it does kick in. And then when you stop pedaling, it cuts off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's still just like a microsecond. But that's so much better than some bikes I've ridden where you stop pedaling and it's still, and that's most notable like at a stop light or something where you just go to scooch up just a bit and all of a sudden you're halfway in the intersection.
And that overrun is interesting because for like the mobility categories and a lot of those bikes that we're talking about that a lot of people are seeing on the bike paths with kids and whatever, like they're specifically tuned to have a lot of power. And like how often do you see anyone actually pedaling those things? Like almost never. Whereas
I don't. If I could just press a button, I'm going to press a button.
Whereas these
the path of least resistance. Every time.
These are intentionally meant to feel more natural. They're intentionally designed to feel sort of like a fitter version of you. I think Specialized even used in their ad campaign for the Levo series.
Only faster.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but like it was still a pretty clever tagline because I think it really kind of nailed what the desired feel is supposed to be for something like this. And I guess for this particular bike in general, like so TQ's got a new motor. It's the HPR 60. It's got a little bit more torque than the old one. It runs a little bit quieter. The old one was already pretty quiet, but this one's definitely noticeably quieter. But the big thing with this one is the old one, if there are any car fans out there, it felt to me like an old Honda VTEC engine where like you had to rev it to like 7,000 RPM to get anything out of it. This one, the torque, it not only has more torque, but it comes on a lot sooner. So it doesn't feel like you have to like wind it up before it does anything. It feels much more natural.
The 60 in that HP60 is the 60 Newton meters of torque, which is hefty,
pretty decent amount.
Hefty amount of torque.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 100.
Yeah.
But 60 is pretty good.
Yeah. And there's 3 settings you can toggle through different ways. You can, I'm using my SRAM Axis demonstration thumbs. You can do that on the levers, or there's buttons that can be strapped to the handlebar. And as far as when that kicks in, I was told that 60 to 100 RPM is kind of the sweet spot for the most amount of power, but you don't have to. To your point, you don't have to be fully revved. In order for that to.
The other one, I felt like it was almost optimized around like 80, 90 or so. Like you really had to be spinning pretty good. And this one again, like the ramp up is a lot more natural feeling.
Let's talk about how the rest of the bike feels with that extra weight in there. And the total bike weight's like what, 26 pounds?
I don't remember.
Ish, depending on the size.
It's not that heavy. Like all things considered, it's lighter than I feel like a lot of people will think it is, and it certainly looks a lot more normal than a lot of people might expect for it to be. Like it's pretty. If you look at it, especially from here, and if you don't know necessarily what you're looking for, like it just looks like a regular gravel bike.
How about handling? How did you find the bike to feel?
I think the handling is pretty good. I mean, the Trek said that they intentionally kept the frame geometry of this the same as the regular Checkpoint SL, with the exception of the back end being a little bit longer.
Yes.
I personally wish they had put more tire on here.
Yep.
The bike has room for 50s, but they equip them stock from the factory with 42 mil, basically almost like semi-slicks. And that might be good for efficiency, or if you're like on like just like a packed dirt road or something like that. But I felt a lot. I mean, granted, some of it had to do with where we were. It's like standard Colorado kitty litter sort of stuff. But I really felt like it needed a lot more tire, and with a lot more tire, it could have been a lot more fun.
Yeah, I certainly felt I'm feeling squeamish going downhill in any circumstances these days, but in particular on this, I felt like I could use a little more width and a little more bite.
It was sketchy.
Yeah, and some of us like we're riding mountain bike trails, right? And riding with like mountain bikers like James and Matt Phillips of bicycling and Travis Engel of the Radivists who can handle mountain bikes well. And for me, I'm like, well, I'm just this old roadie on the skinny roadie tire. So, but like again, like where you live, how you like to ride, determines what a good tire is, and there's certainly room to put a bigger tire on. You could put a bitier tire on, but and perhaps the target market was more of a mixed surface, more on some pavement and just like straight up dirt roads, where a tire like that makes good sense. And when I'm riding just straight up dirt roads, like I love the Schwalbe G1, which is not too dissimilar from that as far as mostly slick or filtered in the center with little bites inside. Because like if I'm on a like straight up road, that's totally not so much an issue. But.
Yeah.
It does feel like, the more weight you add to the bike, the bigger of a tire you should have. Like just, and not that Trek has done this, but I think some early e-bikes, whether it was brakes or tires, they take a normal bike that had been everything theoretically optimized for a normal bike and then just chucked on a, 10, 15 pounds of motor and gear and hope for the best. And like it would overpower the brakes and the suspension, everything was just kind of off. So I feel like tires are still in that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
category.
But for sure, anyone buying this bike, the first thing I would recommend doing is sticking a bigger tire on. No question. Even if they're only riding on smoother dirt road. If for no other reason, then you could argue that in terms of like we were talking about range anxiety earlier. Like we do have all this data now that all other things being equal, if you're on bumpy terrain, a larger casing tire will oftentimes roll more efficiently than a smaller one. So if you can get more grip, more comfort, and potentially more range out of a bigger tire, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Coming back to what we were saying earlier about who the bike is for, I think it's interesting how, again, like e-mountain, certainly at least outside of the U.S., it like completely dominates to the point where like particularly in Europe, for example, like you have a hard time selling a higher end mountain bike that doesn't have a motor on it. People are like, why would I bother when I can get this other one with a motor on it? But I think it's interesting how even Trek said that they have pretty modest ambitions, I feel like, for what the e drop bar category in general is to them in terms of their business. He said something like 10 or 15% or something of their business for drop bar is e.
Compared to mountain, where it's more like 40+%.
Oh, like in some markets it's like 80. But 10% is, comparatively speaking, pretty small. Like it's not a huge thing, which makes sense to me because to me I feel like it is a little bit more of a limited application.
What's the future, James? What's the future for this, and what's the future for you with this? Where do you see yourself riding this?
I mean,
what's exciting to you about this, and where will you reach for the quote-unquote acoustic bike instead of this?
I mean, I told myself, like I said, I've had several e-gravel bikes come through the garage, and like I feel like I haven't really given them as much time as I maybe should have. And I told myself with this one, I'm gonna really give it a go. Let's see how many battery cycles I can put it through. And I think what I'm gonna do at this point is, I think immediately what I'll do is probably I'll grab it on days when I'm like tired or like I'm really pressed for time and just kind of like just head out real quick. I think for recovery rides, I think it'd be awesome for that sort of purpose. But I think also it'll be fun to just kind of like just put myself in the mind, like basically just like throw on a t-shirt and just throw on some shoes and just head out and just ride the thing for fun.
Novel concept.
Yeah, weird. I mean, granted, that's what I normally do anyway. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going to try and put some more time on this one just to like really get a feel for it. I expect to run out of battery probably more than once, which might not be super fun. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a go and see how it is and sort of just like live the e-gravel bike lifestyle for a little bit.
All right, we will check back in with you. Let us know what your questions are, what your thoughts are on this emerging e-gravel category. I'll put a link to James's N-1 newsletter down below. I'm guessing many of you have subscribed. If you haven't, get with it. I'm a paying subscriber. James will give you a sticker. It's a global enterprise, N-1. Whatever type of bike you want to ride, e-bike, acoustic bike, somewhere halfway in between, just get out there and enjoy the ride.
See ya.